Again, when you're dealing with acre land, and I'm just using these numbers because this is the most typical acre lot that you're going to see, 330 by 330. Let's talk about septic. Okay, so we know if we're living out in Desert Hills or areas of Queen Creek where there's no sewer, you're going to have to do a septic. So rules of the septic are there's really two types that we see. We always see the septic, what we call the tank, right? And then off the tank you run, now this is more like plan view, so I apologize. These we call leach fields. So if you see a lot that has a lot of growth, maybe there's a house there existing, you could almost find where the leach fields in the tank are. The negative part of leach fields are, they're about 50 feet long. And so you can't run your leach fields close to your pool, close to your well, close to your driveway. There's issues with rules and regulations on where leach fields can go. That would be more detail oriented if you were helping a client design on the lot. That would be something you'd want to discuss. So the tank can go either way, depending on if you're going to do landscaping, you're going to do a pool, you're not going to put your septic tank in the backyard. So a lot of times you'll see the two clean outs, and then usually the tank, and then the leach fields will run this way. Obviously that's not the scale, but you kind of get the idea. Because the leach fields create such a problem because of length, the other option is just a pit. A leach pit, septic pit, I've heard everything. Same concept, except leach fields, instead of running 50 feet long and 3 feet deep, this thing's going to run about 18 feet deep and about 6 feet wide. And it's going to come off your tank and be your leach field. So it uses up a lot less area of your lot, and these become a little more popular. They're a little bit harder to dig, obviously because of the depth, but we don't do as many leach fields unless we have enough space. On entire lots, let's say this is 3/4 of an acre, leach fields would take up, in your septic, take up a third, 2/3 of your lot. So you're not going to see that, you can see the septic pits. If you're in this process, this is something you go through with Maricopa County Environmental Control. It's pretty easy. They keep track of where all the septic tanks, because in the future, let's say you bought a house, and then somebody said, hey, you know what, I want to put a huge giant ramada in the front yard. You can go to the county at the environmental services, and they can tell you where that is. So that ramada might have to go out here, and not maybe right where you wanted to put it. Or you want to do porte-cochere or something like that. So if you're dealing with septic, you need to know where that septic is. You need to know if it's leach fields, if you need to know if it's a septic pit. So those are things to keep in mind if you're dealing with raw land and you're dealing with septics and septic tanks. Especially if you have a buyer that's on a septic, you're going to want to know where that septic tank is. It's pretty simple. Know where the cleanouts are. Walk out about 20 feet, that's going to be where your tank is. And then from there it can be fields or pits. When you do your septic inspection, they usually can tell you, they'll pull up the records and they'll let you know whether you have pits or fields. So those are things that only time that would come into play is if you wanted to build on the land where you feel the septic pit or the leach fields would be. Any other reason, it's pretty typical, it's not that big of a deal.